But first, there's this. President Trump is en route to Davos right now. After Air Force One was turned back to Washington due to an electrical issue, the president doubled down on his plans to acquire Greenland as world leaders await his speech this morning. Here's the president yesterday.
How far are you willing to go to acquire Greenland?
You'll find out.
What happens to the tariff threat to Greenland if the Supreme Court comes out and rules against you on the tariffs? And
well, I'll have to use something else. I mean,
are
look,
you willing to use force?
you know, take a look at the word license. Take a look at other things. I mean, we have other alternatives. But what we're doing now is the best, the strongest, the fastest, the easiest, the least complicated.
Well, this story dominated the conversation yesterday. I was on stage moderating a discussion with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent in Davos, and he told me more about the importance and the strategy behind acquiring Greenland. Watch. How do you justify taking over a country when, in fact, Denmark and Greenland have said they are not interested?
Well, Maria, I think the president has a very strong view on Western Hemisphere security and believes that the U.S. should not outsource our national security. He believes that Greenland is essential for the Golden Dome missile shield. The president is worried that if there were an incursion into Greenland, the U.S. would be called upon to defend Greenland. Greenland's becoming more and more attractive for foreign conquest. I tell everyone, sit back, take a deep breath, do not retaliate, do not retaliate. The president will be here tomorrow, and he will get his message across.
Lots of reaction to this. European Union leaders reportedly considering a retaliatory trade bazooka if President Trump follows through in his tariff threats. The president is maintaining he will meet anything Europe does, adding he believes a deal can be worked out in the next few days to make everyone involved happy. Joining me now, right now, on all of that and more here in Davos is the Commerce Secretary of the United States, Howard Lutnick. Secretary Lutnick, great to see you.
Great to see you.
Thank you so much for being here. So what's your take on all of this? I mean, you've got European leaders saying we're going to do an emergency session. We want to talk about this. They're doing this emergency meeting on Sunday. You've got the Danes saying we're going to start selling U.S. treasuries. How worried are you about this reaction?
I mean, the Europeans should try to remember what it was like in April. Right? They got all excited and it was a big thing. And the president wrote letters and made comments because he wanted them at the table. Right? You needed the Europeans at the table. Right? And so now that's what he's done. He said, look, you got to pay attention. You got to focus. You got to be at the table for us. And so that's what's going to happen. And Greenland matters to us for national security.
Tell me about Greenland and the national security implications. Why is it so important in terms of national security?
Well, I'll give you an example that's different than Secretary Bessent said yesterday. So the idea is that America has always protected the shipping lanes of the world, right? After World War II, it was America who protected the shipping lanes, right, between Europe and the United States. As the Arctic opens, what do you think is going to happen, right? We need those shipping lanes, and you need to be protected. You can't have Chinese ships or Russian ships while you're coming through, that strait. So America needs to protect it. It's key and part of our national security. The Western Hemisphere is part of our national security, and the president wants to make sure that he's going to protect it. Remember, these trade routes are for Europe just as well. It's not like it's a one-directional thing. These trade routes go both ways.
What would you say if one of our allies said, look, we're going to go in and take over another country, even though the country said we're not interested? I mean, we talk all day and every day about evil action from Putin going into Ukraine. I mean, people are looking at this and saying, how is it possible that the U.S. can acquire another country, even though they're pushing back?
Well, I don't remember Greenland being another country. We're not taking over Denmark. It's just Greenland is in our hemisphere. It's far, far away from Denmark, as we know. And it's 57,000 people, right, who are close to America, and it's important for us to make sure we protect the Western Hemisphere. The strength of America in the Western Hemisphere is vital for the world. When America shines, the world shines. We showed you that throughout 2025. I think the president's going to come and talk about it. He's going to meet with the European leaders. He's going to talk to them. And my guess is they'll work it out. But he wants them at the table. He wants them serious. And I didn't understand why they sent like a couple of dozen military people to Greenland. I mean, it made no sense whatsoever. I mean, they didn't send those couple of dozen people to Ukraine before Russia came in. So, I mean, I think he felt it was a they were just being provocative. And so, if you provoke the president, you're going to get a response.
Well, you're working on a lot of trade issues here, and I want to get to Taiwan in a moment. But are you worried that European leaders are now saying, look, well, maybe we won't do the trade deal that we've already been talking about and negotiating for so long?
No, I think the trade deal that Europe did with the United States is very durable. They don't want to change their auto tariffs. They don't want to change their semiconductor tariffs. And they sure as heck don't want to change their pharmaceutical tariffs. So those things are really, really important to Europe. They matter to Europe. That's why we have the deal in the first place. So I think this is going to be a lot of talking, right? A lot of shaking and a lot of rattling. But in the end, the United States is going to speak to Europe, its great friend and ally, and they will work out a resolution that is suitable for Europe and suitable for the President of the United States. He knows what he's doing, and he is on it. I'm going to leave it to the national security team to work it out. But this is important to America, and if it's important to America, it should be darn important to Europe.
Secretary, you led negotiations between the United States and Taiwan on the latest trade deal alongside U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer. The deal includes a $250 billion investment from Taiwan into American technology, specifically semiconductors. While the U.S. will bring its reciprocal rate on Taiwanese goods down to 15% or less, Taiwan Semiconductor vowing to invest $165 billion to expand production on American soil, including these 3 new chip plants. I want to talk more about this. Well, we talked a little about it with Jameson Greer, and he's going to be here in the 8 a.m. hour. But give us your sense of the importance of this and what this means for national security, this deal that you just did with Taiwan.
So if you don't make chips, you can't have robots, you can't have drones, you can't take care of yourself. So we need to produce semiconductor chips at home to protect ourselves. And when President Trump walked in for a second term, we were producing no leading-edge chips. And our objective is when we leave office, we're going to have 40% market share. So we've got Taiwan, right? 2 blocks of $250 billion, right? Their companies are going to come here, TSMC. We gave them credit for $100 billion. So they've got another 150 to go, right? Plus Taiwan's going to put $250 billion toward their small and mid-sized companies. So we bring the whole supply chain from Taiwan here, try to get up to 40% market share, right? And then for the rest, the CHIPS Act, which was small, we doubled its size. We basically spent no more money and doubled its size. We have Micron building $200 billion in America. So we are going to invest $1 trillion in semiconductors in America, get up to 40% market share, and at least be able to take care of ourselves. God forbid we need to.
Well, this is so important on a national security level. I totally understand that. I mean, you've got China on the march, Russia on the march, and the U.S. is reliant on China for all of these things. You're saying, I mean, how is it possible that President Trump is the first president to actually take action on this?
It seems crazy, right? People
really
slept through everything. I mean, our antibiotics are made in China.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. We can't have an adversary, right, who, God forbid, there's a conflict that we have to rely upon. It just doesn't make sense. So we need to reshore those things. We need to reshore our pharmaceuticals. So when the president is out talking about pharmaceuticals, he's talking about protecting us. God forbid we need it. We learned it all in COVID, right?
Yeah.
Right? We couldn't even get masks. We couldn't get, hospital gear.
Yeah.
It was outrageous. So now we're paying attention to it. And President Trump's the only president who's got the guts, who's got the stamina, says, look, I'm just going to fix the whole thing for America. And that's why it's great to work in this administration. We are literally fixing the things that make no sense in America. We don't make semiconductors. We don't have pharmaceuticals. I mean, come on. We don't do manufacturing. We need to have jobs in America for our great people. Let's bring those jobs back home.
Yeah, and it's incredible to me that it's taken this long to actually do this, and that the president actually had to threaten tariffs in order to get companies to bring their supply chains here, right?
Well, it makes sense, right? Once upon a time, the president always says, once upon a time there was Intel inside. You remember that? We made all the semiconductors. If the president of the United States at the time said, hey, we're going to put a 50% tariff, you got to build it here, then semiconductors would have never left. Instead, we slept through it. We left this globalization model where you should go find the cheapest labor and move to the cheapest labor. And what happened? It all left America. It gutted the industrial base of America. And now we need to bring that home. We need to create those jobs at home. We need to take care of American workers first. And that's what we're all about. We're focusing on American workers. I mean, think about it. What model would have Ford stock up 40%, General Motors up 60%, except when you put Donald Trump in the Oval Office, and he says, I'm going to take care of my domestic auto industry. The UAW is on side. Sean Fain, who runs the UAW, he actually called me, and he said, I can't believe I'm calling a Republican Secretary of Commerce to say, thank God for you guys. You guys care about the American worker.
Secretary, you just met with the CEO of Intel. Tell us about that. Lip Bouton at the White House just 4 months after the government took a 10% stake in the company. You say that the partnership was already delivering tens of billions in value for the American people. The administration has similar stakes in MP Materials, Lithium Americas, U.S. Steel, and others. You have to explain this to me a little, because you're a capitalist. The president is a capitalist. You talk about free market capitalism all the time. And when I interviewed the president for the first time when he came back, second term, it was right after the inauguration, I said to him, Mr. President, what do you want this economy to look like in 4 years? He said, I want the private enterprise to rule the day. How is taking a stake in Intel, MP, telling defense companies not to pay dividends, how's that free market capitalism?
Okay, so let's go over Intel for a moment, right? So I walk in the door. The Biden administration had given, GIVEN, $10 billion to Intel to build semiconductors in America, which they were already doing. So what I call that is called shareholder Christmas. Right? There's a $100 billion company. They just get $10 billion from the government, and they're not going to build any more semiconductors. So we said, look, we're going to cancel that contract, and I want the $10 billion back. I don't want to give you the $10 billion because that's just not going to work for us. And so we negotiated, and we said, okay, you can keep the money that was already signed, sealed, and delivered, and you give us 10% of the equity in the company, right? And now we can help them because we want Intel to be successful in America. It matters to us that we build semiconductors in America. And what's happened? The stock's up 35, 40% since then, right? But remember, the $10 billion was already out the door at zero. So we're up like $30 billion in the United States. I mean, there's nothing wrong with taking care of the American taxpayer once in a while. Everything doesn't have to be a giveaway. So the concept of, isn't this free market? I think this is the definition of free market. Giving away taxpayer money, it just doesn't work for me.
Well, what kind of a shareholder is the government going to be? Are you going to be an activist shareholder? You're going to tell Intel how to spend its money? You're going to tell Intel what to do?
No, but what we do is by us being there and nodding behind them, they know that it's not going anywhere. So you can invest in Intel. You can try. So as Lip-Bu just said, right? He said his 18A is doing well and his 14A is doing well. That's 1.8 nanometer. It's basically the most advanced chip ever made in America, and he's doing it successfully. And that's sort of what we want, right? What does America want? We want leading edge chips made in America. So God forbid if we need them for whether it's F-35s or drones or robots, we're making them here so we can protect ourselves.
Secretary, speaking of drones, are we still buying drones from DJI, a Chinese drone maker? I mean, we still have those drones in our arsenal.
So these things are going to end, right? Drones made in China and robots made in China. It's our view. We're doing a study, right? That's called a 232. We analyze the market, we analyze the study, and then when that is done, we'll come out, we'll recommend to the president what policies and what procedures he can take, and then he'll decide how he wants to do it.
Okay. Speaking of 232, is that an alternative should the Supreme Court go against you? We're waiting on the Supreme Court decision on whether or not President Trump can use tariffs in an emergency. What are you expecting? When are we expecting to get this news from the Supreme Court? And can you come up with an alternative to actually raise that kind of hundreds of billions of dollars in tariff revenue that you've already been able to?
So I was in the courtroom for the Supreme Court argument, and we are going to win the case, right? I listened to the case. We are going to win. It felt really good when I left. When I left, I called the president. I said, you're going to win this case. Wow. So I was there. I listened to the whole thing. So I am pretty confident. But
there were 5 justices that were skeptical about President Trump using it as an emergency.
I think they were skeptical to the other side, to us first. Remember, we went first. So they were very skeptical of us. Right? But then, and then all the newspapers wrote everything and everybody wrote everything. And then they went. And they were more skeptical of the other side. So when I left, I felt good about myself. And each of the justices asked really interesting questions, right? And they said, I'll give you an example. One of the questions was, so let me get this straight. You're saying the president of the United States of America can cut off trade with a country. He can cut it off for zero, but he can't charge them a tariff? So he can't do something less? He said, imagine... this was Brett Kavanaugh. He goes, imagine the Oval Office conversation. Mr. President, we've got a problem with this adversary. And he says, and they say, you can cut him off. He goes, no, I don't want to cut him off. Let's just put a tariff on them. Oh, you're not allowed, sir. It just doesn't make any sense. And that was a Supreme Court justice asking the question. So I think that's what made me feel good, right? There's examples of why we felt good. So I think he's going to win. But Jamieson Greer and I, together with our powers, we can help the president execute whatever plan he wants. We got him here. I think we're going to stay here. But if anything changed, the two of us will work together. We have enough power. We will make it work for the President of the United States. And all of our trading partners know tariffs are going nowhere. But I think we win with the Supreme Court.
So even if you don't, you think you can use different sections like Section 232 and 301 or whatever else to raise that kind of money?
Well, as the Supreme Court justices said, if you overturn this, this is going to be one mess. Wow, would it be a mess? And I just don't see them taking the power away from the only person elected by the full United States of America. He should run foreign policy. Let the president run foreign policy. I mean, look what an amazing job he's done. GDP up 4.3%, right? Imports way down. Exports way up. Trade deficit way down. GDP up and our deficit down. I mean, these are all win, 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 win. You got to leave the president with that power.
What would be your expectation for economic growth this quarter, first quarter?
So I think this quarter, the first quarter of 2026, the United States of America's $30 trillion economy will exceed 5% growth.
Wow, 5%.
Exceed 5%. And if we get a new Fed chair, which we'll get this summer, and they cut rates, which they should, because why is the greatest credit in the world paying the highest rates? You saw the 10-year, right? We just looked at it. 4.25. We are 200 basis points higher than anybody else in the world, and we're the best credit. Usually you would say, no, the best credit pays the lowest rate, not the highest rate. If they cut that rate, you're going to see the end of 2026. You're going to see 6% growth from the United States of America. Wow. And I tell you what, that fixes a whole lot of stuff, and that's why you put Donald Trump in the Oval Office.
Quite a prediction. Real quick before you go, President Trump has been talking about this $19 trillion that he has actually lured to invest into America. When you first came in and you sat down, you were talking about other money that you've been able to raise from various investors and companies. What is that number?
Okay, so Japan gave us $550 billion, and we're focused on building power, right? We all know we need these data centers in America. We're going to build power, but we're going to do it in two ways. Not only are we going to build data centers, but we're going to take a piece of that power, and we're going to give it to the grid, and we're going to drive down the price of energy for Americans. And our objective is to drive it down 10% so that Americans have the benefit of the power we're going to build. The Koreans gave us $200 billion, so that's $750 between the two of them. Then the Koreans gave us another $150 billion to do shipbuilding. Add that to Taiwan's $500 billion, and the Commerce Department, which set all these up, is one busy place investing that money for the betterment of America, and that's on top of what Donald Trump talks about.
Secretary, I think you're having a ball in this new job.
My objective as a member of this cabinet is to have the best time, right? I want to be the cabinet member who has the best time working for Donald Trump.
The American people will hopefully have the best time as well. Secretary, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here this morning. Howard Letnick joining us. We'll be right back. You're watching Mornings with Maria, live from the World Economic Forum.